Hope you all had a great holiday weekend, the extended weekend for you all, us included. We are back on a Tuesday.
Yeah, baby.
As we get ready for another week of draft conversation, some trade rumors that are out there, discussion about players possibly being moved, how that affects the Philadelphia 76ers and their pick at number 3, and all of it right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Tuesday for our Mailbag Monday. On a Tuesday. Welcome. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Bree producing the show as always, our president of basketball operations. Good to see all of you in the chat. We appreciate you hanging out with us as always. And we have a ton to get to. Later on, we'll talk about the conference finals at the end of the show like we have been doing since they have been underway. And we'll let you know where things are currently for that one. Derek, good to see you, man. How's everything?
Great.
Good weekend.
I mean, after 3 days off, it's my spirits tend to get raised a little bit. And that was a good weekend.
Good weekend.
Yeah, got a little beach time. It's weird. I normally think Tuesday is the worst day of the week. I don't know if anyone has any strong takes on that. I
think it's been so long since I've worked a Monday through Friday that I'm not sure.
Do you want the Tuesday theory quick before we get into our mailbag? So Monday, everybody has the shared disdain for Monday.
Sure.
But you also at least have, if you're in a traditional office or whatever, you get to talk about, hey, this is what happened this weekend. And, you get to, that at least carries you a little bit. Tuesday, there's nothing. The fumes of the weekend are gone. And it's just pure misery. Like, man, I have the rest of the week left. Wednesday's hump day. You're midway through. Thursday is basically the pre-weekend, right? You're looking ahead to Friday. And then no explanation necessary for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Tuesday, definitively the worst day of the week.
But we did get the Monday off.
So this week, this is like our Monday.
Yeah.
And Wednesday is our Tuesday. And so we'll reset next week.
Absolutely. All right. Well, folks, good to be back with you on this Tuesday. Not the worst day of the week because we did have Monday off. But we'll get into a lot of stuff to discuss here. As we are, though, Kyle, creeping up on June. We're May 27th, and we're creeping up on June. So we're now less than a month away from the NBA draft on the Wednesday, which is the 25th, I believe it is. And that's the first round of the draft. On Thursday, it's the 26th. And we'll see how things go with the Sixers picking at 35. But as we all start off with, we begin with the 3rd overall pick and where things are as we get together with the new week. And since it is a Mailbag Monday and we do have a ton of mailbag questions.
Monday on Tuesday.
On a Tuesday, we have a ton of questions that we want to throw out there. We like to all, of course, have our voices heard as we should on the podcast. So let's get started with some of the questions that we do have to begin things as we discuss the Sixers and their offseason. Madonna, taking a break from shows and tours and all, checking in.
Should we all Vogue on the show? Like, is that...
Go for it. How does the young core, including one of Ace, VJ, Trey, Khan, compare to other teams in the East? This is something we've talked about off the show. But Derek, how do any of those players with the Sixers compare to the East?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I kind of feel like a lot of the young, like, what are we considering young? Like
25 and under.
Okay. So someone like Cleveland, who they have a long, a lot of runway left with that group, that's not really considered young per se.
How old is Garland?
24?
I think he would still.
He's right on the. He's 25.
25.
So he's
and
right on the cusp.
And teams like the Knicks, while they have a long runway, they're not considered young.
Right.
Devon, still young enough to not grasp
Got rid of it pretty quickly,
man.
though.
Oh, that was pretty quick. That was good reaction time. You still got the reaction time of a young man. So I think it's weird because I feel like a lot of the blue chippers, like blue chip talent, like the Wemby types, are out west. It's someone like Cade's under 24, right? Yeah.
So Cade, Ivy, Duran.
You put someone like Detroit ahead just because they've got the absolute blue chipper that you don't really have right now. I'm not going to put any of like Charlotte because they're always injured anyway. No, I think or Orlando for the depth, and they've got probably more high level prospects.
Now they're obviously Paolo and Franz are pretty high, but after that, it's a steep drop. Like Suggs, I guess, would be the third.
Suggs
guy.
of last year would have been real high, but
Yeah.
a shooting slump. And the Pacers, we don't consider them young. And again, even though, how old is Halliburton?
25.
Yeah,
about
He's right on the
26.
cusp.
Right at the
Like
cusp.
I mean, obviously, if we're including him, that skews things, right? That's the thing about this conversation. If you have the best first guy, that skews things dramatically.
Right. Like, for example, Dallas has a better young core just solely
From
based
Cooper
off of
Flagg
Cooper
being
Flagg.
there.
Right. Spurs, but they're not in the East. No, I mean, they would have a very competitive young core in the East. Like I said, I think the East is a weaker conference of young players. They have a weird combination of veteran talent and that young core. Not the veteran talent a lot of people don't believe in, but I think they have a very strong young core in the East. Not quite up there. You know, it doesn't really matter per se. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's not going to give you a whole lot of. You're not going to be super confident about it because you're still, like I said, you're missing that one guy that truly gives you purpose as a franchise for the next decade. I'm not sure who they're going to get at 3 really classifies as that, and because of that, you're going to put them below someone like Detroit. But I think they've got a pretty competitive young core. They really are. It is a unique position for a team that has spent so much money and has 3 max level guys, has been building around Joel Embiid up until literally right now. They have put together a pretty solid young core, drafting pretty late in the first round. And now you have this unique opportunity, given to you in part because what you tried to do failed so epically, but you're given this unique opportunity to have a number 3 pick. It is unique. Like, you don't see teams this expensive, this old, this trying to win, have this opportunity to have a Maxey, McCain. I'll even throw Grimes in there and number 3 pick, but it's not quite at the level where you feel fully confident about the next 5 to 6 years.
And Maxey will be 25 in November.
So he's right on the cusp.
He's right on
too.
there.
Yeah. But I do think 25 and under is a good dividing line, right? So I think I like that you brought up Detroit and brought up Cade as the true blue chipper, right? Because I think a lot of people
wouldn't have been viewed as a blue chipper like even 12 months ago.
Right. And he has quickly gone from that to he was 3rd team All NBA. And frankly, I think he had a strong case to be 2nd team All NBA based on his season. Like, I don't know if this is a hot take to people in the chat. I would have had Cade over Steph Curry on 2nd team All NBA. I just think from start to finish, Cade had a better season and was like a more, not to say he's more integral, I guess, because Steph, without him, the Warriors are nothing. I just think if you are talking about from late October to mid-April, Cade Cunningham had a better season than Steph Curry. So you're talking about a guy who's in the top, by definition, making All NBA. That's top 15 seasons in the league, and I think could have argued top 10. And while Maxey, we all think is a very good player, he's probably closer to 25, right? 20 to 25, depending on where you want to put him. And some of that's contextual, right? Like all these guys, Cade had a much better in terms of role player production, team health and whatnot this year.
If we clip this section of the show, do you think maybe Tobias will weigh in on Cade versus Maxey?
Tobias was there and present, and maybe we can talk about that in our around the
news
league
and notes
later on. But if everybody's healthy, if you add this potential blue chipper at 3 and you start to put a real team, a consistent team around Tyrese this season, these things can swing pretty quickly, right? But I do think Detroit is a good one to bring up. Orlando, obviously. I think Paolo's a tough one for me because he has leveled up a lot, and I think he's very good. Is he a best player on your team guy on a high-level team? The jury is still out on that, but the size, the athleticism, the defensive potential there.
They weren't in those games in that first round, though, without him.
Yeah.
At all.
For sure.
I do feel like, and I agree he's in the conversation, but to be like a no doubt about it guy, you have to have at least like a league average offense at one point. That would be a great thing to see.
Yeah,
right. So I think Orlando, they're probably comparable to. And then after that, it's Halliburton with Indy and the rest of those guys. That's an important one. But a lot of them are right there about to graduate out of that tier, right? And Mathurin, I think, was one of their chances at a blue chip guy, and he's been pretty much unplayable in this Knicks series. Not to say that he's unplayable, period. But yeah, I think they'll be up there with basically anybody if they nail the pick. But this is a minefield, right? We've talked about this class quite a bit. And while some people are convinced like this is a clear 3-player draft and you just take ace, and I think the consensus view from people in the league, or even the people who are just, draft experts, would say there's a lot of variability. So it's a we shall see, but I think you could feel very good when you start with Maxey and McCain based on what we saw last year.
And I was just taking a quick peek at the ages of the guys for the Hawks, because Dyson Daniels is still 22. You have Rishashe, who had a fantastic rookie season.
Jalen Johnson, although he was hurt,
he's 20.
Been very good.
Jalen Johnson is 23. And so you figure, if not already those ages when the season starts, they'll be a year older when the season gets underway. That's a pretty good 3 to start off. And I said Okongwu was 24. So he's right on the cusp of that 25 as well. So they have a pretty good chance. And we saw what the Hawks did. And when Jalen Johnson went down, that really hurt them, of him not being available and how that looks. So that's just another team, though, that they would have to really contend with in the Eastern Conference if we're talking about just the young players. Now, not a blue chipper, but Jalen Johnson, we were discussing when we were putting together our all-star picks. You guys went Trey, I went Jalen Johnson, but you guys didn't argue against it because of how good Jalen Johnson was that season. He had that type of year, and if Rishashe takes another step, then we're also looking at a potential good core of young players from the Atlanta Hawks also. So that would be one that to pay attention to. The other ones, not so much. Washington, Chicago.
And look, all these teams get to add players too, right? Like
sure.
the Hawks we'll see what happens with them, but there'll be some interesting options where they're at 13, I believe. So you could be talking about a Newell, a Carter Bryant, a CMB for Chicago. If Derek Queen doesn't go, 6. We've talked about his potential to slide, so you could potentially send him there. But I just think, given what the Sixers have in place and their higher positioning in this draft and what you can do with that, whether it's taking a guy or even trading back and saying, hey, we're going to pick up 2 picks, and then you add 2 guys to there are a lot of avenues for them to kind of solidify this young group. You were talking earlier, like, oh, it's almost June. And I know when the season ended, we're like, man, this is a long offseason. Them getting this pick has made it just fly by. We're having draft conversations every day, and it makes it feel like we can't even fit all the draft conversations in that we want to have. So it's been very nice for them to simply keep the pick at all, let alone move up into the top
2 weeks
3.
ago yesterday, as when the lottery was that night.
Flying by.
And Derek almost had an attack on the air because he was hoping. We all hoped for the number 1 pick when they got close. But then he was, So
elation.
Good. Yes. We're still in the mix here to talk about some good quality basketball.
It is wild.
At that
You brought
spot.
up the Wizards. It's wild that the Wizards haven't had a winning season since like 2017. And they still don't really have a young player where like.
Was that John Wall?
Yeah, I think I'll have
that was still John Wall, Bradley Beal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they still don't have like a young player where they're like, yep, that's someone to build around.
Yeah. Look how long ago John Wall was relevant, and he's been gone for years, and they still don't have a player.
I'm getting so old, man. I'm just thinking about the John Wall mixtapes from high school in Kentucky. Like
that was the first draft I covered. It was a John Wall draft.
Yeah.
All right, Grandpa, did you do it in the snow uphill both ways? Were you watching film on a projector? Or one of the things they bring in on it is a projector, but the ones they bring in on the cart in school, you remember those?
Actually, it's the exact.
That's how you know we're old, because that was like all I used in elementary school. And then by the time I got to high school, it was smart boards and all the other nonsense they use now.
We either use
Get off my lawn, etc.
Or they would pull down the projecting screen for us in school. So there's that. Did you think that before we get to the next question and even our break at some point, were you more Cousins at 2 or Evan Turner at 2 for the Sixers?
No comment.
Okay. I was Turner, so I'll just.
No, I was Turner.
I was Turner at 2. Yeah, I thought that made more sense.
I don't even think I watched enough college that year to have a take. I was just happy that the Sixers were in the position to draft somebody high. Unfortunately, they didn't use the pick well.
They did not. No, they did not. Keith B says the real projector. That's right. In school, pull the projector down. Get the projector.
And some teachers were better with those projectors than others, right? You put the sheet on and you're using the marker for like the math graphing stuff, and you had teachers that like didn't understand what direction they needed to draw in. I was like, all right, man.
Yeah.
Need to put you in like a teaching seminar
Good
this
times.
summer.
Good times.
So it is, you bring up that draft though. It is a wild draft because like none of them really felt like they truly met expectations. Like Cousins put up numbers. He never won anywhere. Wall put up numbers, but now look, part of that's playing in Washington. You're not really going to win a lot. But like he had holes in his game with the turnovers and the shooting and the inconsistent off-ball defense that would limit him a little bit. Wesley Johnson was just a disaster as a pro.
Yeah.
It was that was a top 5 where like the good players, the players who worked, never really amounted to much in the league. And so many of them, players that you would have been like happy to draft, were just nothing.
I mean, one of the only guys remaining from that class is on the Sixers, Paul George.
Yeah.
Paul George, number
Went
10.
Went 10.
Yeah.
Number 10.
Gordon Hayward right in front of him.
Yeah.
And that was, Gordon Hayward, I think, probably had a better career than a lot of people
If his
expected.
if his knee didn't blow out, he's probably still in that trajectory of all-star, all-NBA conversation. And Wesley Johnson in today's league with that 3-and-D conversation.
Problem is he never really shot well and he didn't play a lot of defense in the league. So outside of that,
might have worked out for him. Might have worked out for him. You know what? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get to our next question here on Mailbag Tuesday. Since we're back from the holiday weekend, get to the questions right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Gang, we're talking a lot about Ace lately, right?
Yes, he's already got
But
a
it's a
sponsor
different
in
Ace.
waiting.
Ace Hardware Home Services. They got that for you no matter what that is for your problems. Got an outlet you said you'd fix last summer. Ace Hardware Home Services has the person too. They're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. I know I say this all the time, guys. I'm a homeowner now. Once you cross that bridge, once you're no longer a renter and it's your stuff, it's the inner workings of your house, you don't just get to call somebody and say, hey, I got a problem, then you got to deal with it. The decisions that you make to make sure that everything's running smoothly, that it's not costing you an arm and a leg to get things fixed, those are really important things to have addressed by people you trust, people who are not going to rip you off. And that's why Ace Hardware Home Services is such an important and trusted partner for us here at PHLY. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
little disappointed you didn't bring up your new Ace jingle, but we'll get to that at some point, maybe over the next month. We also want to tell you about Empire Today. Just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage as well. And Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. You may have been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person actually helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on the Tuesday. Let's get back to our mailbag questions as we hang out with you from, is that Bussy or Busey?
Busey.
Busey 49.
Like Gary Busey,
Gary
right?
Busey, yeah. You
The
said
legend.
handle and hands are two of the hardest skills to meaningfully improve. We saw Bonus hands improve last year, and he started playing later. Didn't VJ start later? So does he have more handles upside than someone born onto an AAU team?
I don't know if VJ started playing later. Certainly because he came from the Bahamas and then starts his US career, we'll say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He has made pretty significant strides over the last few years. And Derek got me thinking lately as we've had conversations about.
That never leads you to a good place.
We've had conversations about Tatum, right? And mostly they've been related to Ace Bailey because people have tried to throw out Tatum as if you didn't like Tatum and he turned into this, why can't Ace Bailey turn into this? And what Derek has brought up with Tatum is something that he missed and many people missed at the time was the speed of the growth he was going through when he was 18, 19, like seeing steps forward from him as a player with his skills, his shot development and whatnot. And so that'd be something I wouldn't ignore with VJ, right? Like you don't always say, oh, because this guy grew a lot at 17, 18, 19, that means he's definitely going to be a star or he's definitely going to continue to take those steps forward. But it is a positive indicator to take note of that as we talk about all the character, the work ethic, the background stuff that we reference a lot on this show, that's a tangible example of, okay, VJ has made strides, right? Like he had a good high school shooting track record. And so to not fixate so much on he shot X at Baylor, just the same you wouldn't focus on Ace Bailey shot 34.5% from three at Rutgers. I don't think any of us believe that that's a true indicator of Ace Bailey's shooting potential or shooting talent, right? And I also would say Ace Bailey shooting 69% at the line at Rutgers, probably not indicative of either his free throw shooting ability or his shooting ability, right? So things that you're looking for are, okay, who was Ace as a senior player versus freshman year at Rutgers? Who was VJ as a senior player versus freshman year at Baylor? And so on and so forth for all these prospects. So I think the point that Busey brings up is an important one, right? Because we can say all these vague concepts, right? Like character and work ethic and all that. But to see concrete development, to see, oh, this guy got a little better going with his left hand, right? Like one weakness that VJ has is he is not a strong left-handed driver. He's got a little bit of a loose handle and going left specifically is a problem for him. So seeing progress from that, if a team has him in for a workout, right? That's something that you're going to drill him on. Like, okay, let's see if we're forcing you to go left on all these reads, how do you react to that, right? So the little bits of skill development between these couple of years are very important to keep track of. And while I am skeptical of guys improving their handle substantially, because I don't think it happens a lot, it's not to say it's not possible, right? Donovan Mitchell is an example of a guy who's a late bloomer. Paul George, Victor Oladipo, and those are guys in different archetypes. So you don't want to put anybody in a box, I think would be the overall point there.
Yeah. No, it is ball handling is certainly one that's a tough one to project. Like Kyle mentioned, it's not an impossible one to improve upon. And that distinction there, can it be improved? Yes. Is it easy to be predicted? Very much no. And, Kyle brought up a good point. Shooting I think, can get misconstrued at times because people focus too much on percentages. And especially in college, like you're talking about a 30-game sample.
Yep.
Everyone, when you look at an NBA season, players can struggle for a half of a season and then turn it around. Danny Green can go from shooting 42% year over year over year to having 1 year, and this is one full season where it's a lot higher sample size, where he just shoots 33% and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So you have a less than half of an NBA season to work with, a low sample size. That's why you start looking at things like free throws, and free throws tend to be indicative for two reasons. One, for at least in the past, you used to get a higher sample size than on three-pointers. That's not true anymore. In fact, Ace shot more threes than he shot free throws. That's some good, some bad. But also, at least free throws, it's a controlled environment, showed touch and repeatability motion kind of come into play. Whereas threes, there's so many different kinds that you take a already small sample size and then you're like off the dribble, off of screens, off of catch, off all this of different types, and it gets really, 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 really small. So it is one thing to have noisy data, which I think sometimes the three-point shooting does. With handle, you really have like no data to go off of. And you can say whether or not somebody can currently get to the rim, but projecting out whether or not they can make that Paul George leap is almost impossibly difficult.
Yeah. And like, so VJ, a lot more people have focused in on what are the at rim, what does the driving stuff look like? Because he's not viewed as the shot maker guy, right? He's a guard. So you want to see guard skills. So that's handle, driving ability, passing, all that type of stuff. The other side of it, though, is that VJ, because of how the NBA is and how much more of a priority there is on shooting on every roster, VJ, if you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, you say, with that little bit of extra space, even a lot of bit of extra space, because Baylor didn't have the greatest spacing environment this year. VJ should be able to use the first step a lot more effectively than he could at Baylor, right? He'll just have more space. You should give that benefit of the doubt to most guys who are in shaky situations. I would throw Ace in there, although we've talked about the major concerns with Ace's handle and driving ability. I'd give that benefit of the doubt to Trey to some extent, right? Because Texas's offensive environment was super poor. He's tasked with doing a whole hell of a lot that, frankly, a 18, 19-year-old kid shouldn't be asked to do by a coach who's worth their salt, right? So that is the hardest part, right? Like, I think shooting, to Derek's point, there are like real benchmarks you can use. Handle is a little more, not to say it's abstract, but there's a little more eye of the beholder, right? Like what do you see that this guy can do? And then how do you think that translates to an NBA system where maybe the guy's a first option, maybe the guy's a third option? Is he going to be a lead guard? Is he going to be a second side attacker? And so because I put both VJ and Ace, just in this example, as second side guys, right? I don't want either one. I'm not drafting either one to be featured player, give the guy the ball and just let him cook, right? I want them to be more in the second side offense, secondary creator type. I think VJ's explosiveness gives me more confidence that he can be more that reliable, get to the rim guy when he's playing off of the Maxeys, the Embiids, or if he goes elsewhere, he's playing off of LaMelo, Brandon Miller, whoever. Ace, I think, certainly has a clearer path to being the spot up guy, the big time shooting threat, but I still have doubts about the downhill stuff.
Duck Holiday says, Ace is the pick. I'm not taking VJ, PJ, or Hey Mr. DJ. Ace at 3.
Listen, that has been well established by many of you in the chat. We don't need any reminders of how pro Ace you are.
There you go. Let's get to the next question here on the Mailbag Tuesday on the PHLY Sixers podcast. TK76, 2 underscores there, looks like. Do you think any possible high upside targets that could involve the 3 pick in the vein of when Morey acquired a young Harden? That was, of course, from OKC.
So the problem with most of these, I mean, I guess Harden was a little bit predictable because there was a salary crunch, or at least they didn't want to pay all of those salaries. It was maybe a self-induced salary crunch, but you knew that they were hesitant to give out 4 major contracts like that. I'm not sure I necessarily see an obvious one on the horizon like that. And a lot of times when players like this shake free, it's not like a Harden situation where you see it coming. It does come out of nowhere because you don't want to try to risk alienating a young player who might still be in your program long-term. I don't think I have a great answer off the top of my head, though. And this question came in earlier today, and I thought about it.
And also, here's the other thing. The odds that you're going to acquire the next James Harden, whether that's a guard or any other position, very low, right?
Yeah.
It's very low that you're going to trade for a guy who's coming off the bench as a top 3 pick somewhere, and he becomes a multiple-time MVP candidate, MVP winner, and like first ballot Hall of Famer, right? It's not I think to bring it back a little bit.
There's just so much young talent on that squad that he was almost, I want to say he was hidden because he won like 6-man that one year, right?
Yeah.
He was averaging like,
and frankly, the year they went to
closing
the
lineups.
finals, I don't remember what game of that series it was, but there was against the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. There's a game that Harden just like completely took over in the second half, and it was like, oh my God, this guy is nails.
Yeah. But it was definitely a situation where it's like there's just it's people overuse the like there's only one basketball, but like there was no way all of them were going to put up the kind of numbers that they were capable of putting up.
So when you look at talent, though, you go back to OKC right now where they have all those guys, but they look like they're all, Sam Presti, number one, is, despite the James Harden piece of it, he's a fantastic general manager, and he seems like he's figuring a way out to keep them together. Yeah. If he can keep Chet Holmgren there, it's really those 3. Everybody else is
he
really
had a hell of a game
roles.
last night.
Yes, he did.
Defensively.
And what, Kason Wallace, is he going to be one? I don't know. But other than that, those are the 3 core players right there, and they're probably all going to be there. Yeah. He doesn't have to worry about that. So coming off the bench, can't think of one, but
yeah. Well, so I brought up someone to you that we talked about last offseason as like I think this guy can make a substantial step forward still and is already a very good player, and that's Trey Murphy in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
I think what you've seen from him was year one, he's a low usage, low minute guy. Year two, he then graduates to he's a starter, 31 minute per game guy, but he's still in a fairly low usage role. Same thing basically in year three. Now, last year, he gets a usage spike, and you're talking about a guy who averages 21 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, taking 8 threes a game. His efficiency from three drops a little bit, but he feels like a guy that New Orleans was a mess last year, right? You didn't know if Zion was playing basically ever. DeJounte Murray blows his Achilles out, so that's a big problem. CJ McCollum's on his last legs.
Ingram for the first half of the
season.
season.
Yeah, it's like the Ingram factor too. Zion and Ingram, there was like a lot of overlap where they're running into each other in certain spots, and how do you effectively run an offense? And Trey Murphy's still a guy that's given you a fairly efficient 21 points a game, good defensive player as well, switchable defender, and just feels like a guy that if New Orleans was a serious team, or at least a healthy team, frankly, or he got sent elsewhere, you could be talking about a guy who's like, oh my God, Trey Murphy's really good. And I think the problem there, if you're talking about the Sixers or anywhere else, is that New Orleans has valued this guy quite a bit. When I brought him up last summer, I was like, that's a guy you're probably going to have to pay a ton to go and get. You might be able to talk me into, hey, maybe Joe Dumars comes in and just doesn't value this kid the same. The issue is his number is really hard to get to if you're the Sixers. He's at $25 million cap hit next season, and there's really no good way for them to get there, right? Like you probably have to trade a big money guy, so one of Maxey, George, or Embiid, and then it's Trey Murphy and other stuff coming back. So that's a guy I think could be a different team or even just better team in New Orleans, and he really breaks out, but hard to say. They're a bit of a mess down there.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the contract makes that almost impossible. We've got some suggestions in the chat. Hedva bringing up Santi Aldama. We had a Herb Jones mention, and look, I love both of those players, and Herb is a guy that we brought up.
They're still role players.
We're not talking James Harden there. I feel like that's outside of the spirit.
And I'm not talking about that with Trey Murphy. Like,
no, but he's at least
he's
closer.
Get there.
Yeah,
but he can be an all-star.
Yeah,
he has all-star potential.
Yeah, I mean,
Trey
you
Murphy.
score. Look, it's on a bad team and all the caveats, but once you clear the 20+ points a game threshold and you're doing it efficiently, and you have some playmaking strides that you make as a player, like that's a hard bar to clear. So I think he's certainly in a different category.
Yeah, dust off my Cam Whitmore take. Get him out of Houston. That's his problem now.
Houston has a few guys that people are like, if you take them off that team, what would they be, right? Jabari Smith is one that we've talked about a lot. I don't buy him. I mean, I think you could put him in a higher volume role and maybe tap more into his shot making. I just think the ball handling is so bad.
Right.
He's got but they have a crunch, right? They just have a lot of these big athletic forwards, and there are only so many you can get on the floor. So if you want to take a swing on one of those, I don't think that's a crazy thing. No. Tyrese always comes up. Yeah. He's more of the defense rebounding, the dirty work stuff than he's going to come here and score 20 points a game.
He's more all defensive.
Love how
team.
He plays. Like really big fan of his game.
All defensive team kind of guy. If when he moves on, and maybe in a conversation for defensive player of the year type of thing, but that's probably about it. All right, quick break. We come right back. Greeny Green says, "I'd love to get Cam Whitmore." Well, I'm sure Cam Whitmore seems like he would love to get out of Houston.
And frankly, his sticker price is probably pretty low right now because he's just not playing.
And he is 6'6". He's like 6'6", 6'7", or something like that. So pretty decent size at that wing position for Cam Whitmore. I still think he could play. All right, we come back. We'll get to some more of these questions. We get to a few other things a little bit later here, right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. All right, folks, I got to tell you about a few things here, starting with the Hall of Fame app as we hang out with you. And with the Hall of Fame app, we've all been there. We talk about these games. There's a basketball game tonight, a postseason game, postseason NHL, and the Major League Baseball season is ongoing. But your parlay, one leg away. You just missed it by one leg. There's a relief pitcher that goes up, gives up a walk-off home run in the ninth. your heartbreak, right? Sound familiar? Or you put something together during your job and putting some picks together for, whatever, for the pregame show. And you miss one leg. And then your reputation just kind of falls off because Derek says then that you're not good at it. Well, this is how you get the help.
Look, you had like a 3-week cold stretch, my man.
The HOF, the Hall of Fame app, is built to fix that. Started by two lifelong sports fans who also happen to be some Ivy League grads. HOF makes parlay research smarter, faster, and data-driven. This is not your buddy's group chat. It's not us just talking about it or hot takes. It's full of analytics engine. The HOF app gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help you bet smarter. The app is built for the everyday sports fan, so it's easy to, for the innovative and initiative overall to use, right? And you'll get an idea of the parlay's chances to hit and identify weak legs so you can weed them out before you place those bets. So whether it's the MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, or college sports, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not hype at all. So for a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code PHLY at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS and Android or visit hofbets.com, enter code PHLY, and folks, you'll be all set. And I also have to tell you about Parx Casino. You want a Parx Casino app, online casino, you can do that. It's one thing that I love about the BetParx app is that all the games that you love to play in person at Parx Casino, like pop culture, slots, roulette, cards, dice games, and more, can also be played on the BetParx app. Parx Online Casino has the games you love, whether you're at home or on the go. Here's what you do. Download the BetParx app, create an account today, receive an offer you can't pass up. New users are eligible to receive up to $1,000 back if you are down in the first 24 hours after signing up. BetParx Online Casino is available to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Michigan residents. Terms and conditions apply. And if you do want to, I'll just get up and go take a quick drive. It's an easy drive. Right off the street road exit of the I-95 and the PA Turnpike. You can go right to the Excite Center where the state-of-the-art entertainment venue is located in Parx Casino. And I named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians and music headlines. All you have to do is simply go to their website and check it out at parxcasino.com. Check out what the list of entertainment will be for you on any particular day. See what it looks like and make your decision from there. Parx Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast, where we have a golf event coming up.
Do we?
We do. It's the PHLY, second annual PHLY Liberty Open. And you got to come out, hang out with us at Valley Brook Country Club, June 14th, 2 p.m. start time. And it's going to go run from 2 to 7. And you'll have an opportunity to hang out with all the PHLY family here, the talent. And you can even golf with some of them too. Because if you go in there and look, there's now an update of who you can golf with for a foursome because Tyler and his dad are one. And then you need 2 other people to round out. Jamie has one. Rich Hoffman has one as well. And also you have Fran Duffy there as well, where you can team up and have a foursome of playing golf out there on that day with those great guys. And if you go and look, once again, at allphly.com, sign up because you must be a diehard member to participate. You go in there, sign up, and when you do, you have an opportunity to sign up to join us on June 14th at Valley Brook Country Club in Blackwood, New Jersey. So do that. Hang out with us. Get some beer and some drinks.
I'll tell you, I played some bucket golf at the beach over the weekend, which I didn't know was a thing.
I didn't know that.
It's basically just chipping into a bucket.
You think they would let us do that since we don't golf?
Well, you don't want to be in the sand on a normal golf course. So I feel like the whole concept is a little...
Put it on the green. Put it on the green.
I don't think they want you chipping on the green either. That's a little... The etiquette there is...
There is an etiquette, for sure, in golfing. So hang out with us June 14th, the Valley Good Country Club, the second annual PHLY Liberty Open. Hope to see you there. All presented by Xfinity. All right, welcome back. Let's get to another question here.
What do we got, Bree?
We went through 3 of these so far. Let's get through a 4th one here. Cactus 17. Which bigs do you like at 35 overall? Feels like a good spot to get a rotation big to work with Bona and Embiid so that we can keep Drummond on the bench.
Well, first of all, pour one out for Axel Lindenberg. Although he's not a true big, he is a front court guy. He's a 6'9" forward, and was reported by Jonathan Gavoni at ESPN today. He is officially headed back to college. He had committed to Michigan if he's going back. So he took the NIL money. And as we discussed on, that was last week's show, we did the second round targets. That was a guy I really liked. I think all of us liked him to different degrees. He's now off the board. So I think one of the natural names would be one of your guys, Devon.
Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Kalkbrenner.
From Creighton. Defensive presence.
Yep.
A senior, of course, coming out of Creighton. But one that the skill level is, you know what he's going to do. He's going to you have him to protect the rim. A little bit slower, if you will, but he can move pretty decently, though, at that size of a 7-footer. Has a decent touch from inside if you do have to go over his left shoulder for a jump hook, somewhere around the basket. Of course, he can finish with the lobs as well because he is a big target. Kalkbrenner is a name that we talked about when we did our conversation about the 35th overall pick. One of the other names that we discussed as a big man, Alex Condon, decided to also go back to school.
Yep.
So he's going
back to Florida. And there are a lot of
Florida.
guys who are going back to school, frankly. And I think that's some of that's the impact of NIL money on the fringe second round, first round type guys.
So what does it do for a guy like Kalkbrenner, who is the one who is a senior and he's staying in? So he's like the lone guy right there at the
in
top.
like that 25 through 40 range, those were the 3 names. And if 2 of them are going back to school, that certainly helps his stock. I do think, Kyle brought this up, but at that point, you're not really drafting for need. So it's probably not going to help his stock as much as you might think. Because if you're going, I need a big man in the second round, I think you're just flat out the wrong approach. But there's certainly a dearth now of big men in that area. So that should help his stock.
Yeah, and I think the other names that people think of are probably much higher in this draft, if I had to guess. So Danny Wolf is someone that was brought up in the chat.
He's not.
I don't think he's making it out of the top 20, if I had to guess. He's just a dribble, pass, shoot big man. So those are tough to find if he falls because people have defensive concerns or anything else. Then that's a
shot. The shot wasn't great.
Yeah, and the shot. I think that's certainly worth taking a look at him. Then there's somebody like a Thomas Sorber at Georgetown. His measurements were crazy at the combine, and the statistical production defensively is just so high for a kid that age that I just can't see him falling out of the top 20 either. So it's really hard to see of the name guys, anybody except for Kalkbrenner. So then you're talking about, like a Maxime Reynaud. You're talking about who's the? I'm blanking on the Chinese big man.
Hansen
Yang. Igavini just brought up. What about taking a flyer on him?
No, I mean he's certainly, and I haven't watched enough on him, so I'm not going to speak a ton about him. But he's a name that's been brought up a lot recently, and he's just a guy who seems like he has a great feel for the game. Huge. He's like 7'2". Really good passing, and like I said, a good feel for the game.
Yeah,
but I haven't watched.
I can't sit here and say I have any real feel for.
I will by the time we get to the draft. But
he's somebody that's been on the list to watch and go through the game tape. But
so Kalkbrenner would be the leader at least for right now as a top.
But
there's top of the list. Big
some of the people
round.
who are the real deep in the weeds draft people are raving about Hansen Yang.
I've seen people talk top 20.
Yeah. So who knows by the end of the process? And again, I will also remind everyone what is being talked about in the draft spaces does not always match what you hear from NBA teams, right? So we'll see where that ends up. But Hansen Yang is another one to at least consider in there.
7'1" without shoes, 9 foot 3 inch standing reach.
He's huge.
Big dude. Yeah.
Huge.
Big dude. All right. Next question. Mailbag Tuesday. We have CJL 78. How do you feel when people say, quote, you can't take X player at 3, end quote, if they believe there's a star? At what point do you care about extra assets versus the chance of missing out on your guy in a trade down situation?
I think if you believe, if the Sixers scouting department believes this player is a star at 3,
you don't.
I am not trading out of that. Like that, it's I think it's that simple, right? It all comes down to what is your eval of this guy? If you're more on the side that we've talked about, which is 3 to let's say 8 or so is pretty jumbled, and I don't know that I have a high degree of confidence for anyone, that's when you trade down. If you believe, like, it would be like us saying if the Sixers were at 2, and we've talked for months about we think Flag is definitive 1, but we think Harper's definitive 2, and we think he has like multi-time all-star potential if things break right, you just don't trade out of that spot. Mm-hmm. So I think the answer to the question is pretty simple. You don't trade if you think that's a star.
I agree.
No, it's not like it's not like I sit here and have like a fetish for collecting assets. Like, no, you have assets to get a star.
Yes. The
reason I'm interested in trading down is because there's not that separation between 3 and 8 that I see. But if that was different, Kyle brought up a good hypothetical. If you had a 2 pick, no, I would not be wanting to trade out of it. Certainly not. It's one thing for established NBA players, not for additional draft capital.
Yeah, like when Hinkie was running this team, right? He wasn't acquiring a ton of picks because he thinks stars are all over the draft. He just wanted as many chances as possible to get that star, right? And then once you tank the season and once you end up with top 3, top 5 pick, it's not like they were like, well, let's trade back and pick up 3 picks for. It's like
he wasn't opting out of drafting Joel Embiid so we could get like 8 and 16.
No.
Yeah.
So again, this all comes down to how your team, how your GM, whoever evaluates this class and the individual players within it.
Right.
Now, trading Okafor for 8 and 16.
Well, and so that's important, right? If you miss on the eval,
yes,
you can end up in a situation where it would have been much better to trade down. And that's why these guys make a ton of money to make these decisions and why the people they surround themselves with are also super important, right? You also, I feel like Elton Brand comes up a lot in a negative fashion on this show and elsewhere, but it's why it's important to have a well-rounded front office, right? Like Daryl Morey comes from a different perspective than an Elton Brand does, than your director of scouting does, than your analytics team does. Like it all has to work in conjunction. And that doesn't mean every single guy in the room or girl in the room has to agree on the same take. It's how can we come together to combine all our ex-player, pro scout, data quant, how does that all come together to make the best and most reliable board that we can? That's the mark of a good organization, right? Is being able to have disagreements and arguments, but ultimately come to like a collaborative consensus on all that.
Absolutely.
And they've been very good at that.
Mm-hmm. All right, now they got the 3rd overall pick, a little bit different than 16 and 21 and all the other ones. Let's see what they do with number 3. We're still a month away. Let's get the next question in here on Mailbag Tuesday. Rich 14 and a bunch of other stuff there. Your game is about buckets.
The game is about buckets.
That's right.
Rich 14 says.
Could PJ Washington be a trade target? How do you like his fit? Not really a report, just speculation because they have so many power forwards. And I guess you add the Cooper Flag piece in there of how that would all balance out. So PJ Washington. I feel
like Coop and PJ would fit pretty well, though.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Now, you wonder if PJ loses a bit of value because he doesn't have Luka there spoon feeding him.
And you also
unfortunately, that Luka trade was something that they had no control over and was forced upon them. Oh no, they opted into that one.
And he's on a reasonable deal for the next. Yeah, well, he's actually he's on an expiring contract. He's on 14, just over 14. So you could get to his number with Kelly and Andre, basically, and maybe some. I don't know what the matching is at that, but I have some interest, right? 27-year-old, good athlete, good rebounder.
When he finally got to the postseason, played well.
Yeah. Has shot well. At least he shot well last year.
Yeah.
And that's been the knock against him over the long term.
That second half, though, when he left Charlotte and got to Dallas, he shot pretty well.
And he shot decently earlier in his career, too. He just had some down years in between.
Yeah, interesting.
No, I like PJ a lot.
Yeah, I like the name. Najee Marshall, big acquisition last summer, trading for Caleb Martin during the season. They got a lot of wings and lengthy guys there, and they have a center problem that they need to figure out. more so than anything.
I was going to say, I think the bigger thing is what are they doing with all those guys? Because
that's a lot.
I wonder if Derek Lively ends up in LA, reunites with Luka somehow. Seems like
that would be insane.
Listen, man.
Did
you see the other day? I think they claim that Lively has grown like another inch or two, which is he's already big, right? Like that. He's huge.
Yeah, I did see that.
Good for him. That was listen. As much as I have pushed back on this show about the concept of risers at the combine and the pre-draft process, that some of that is just public knowledge catching up to teams behind the scenes. I will say Derek Lively was a guy during the pre-draft process that in the final month, I heard from a bunch of people. I was like, listen, this kid is rising up boards, like has interviewed really well. People are saying, XYZ didn't happen for him in college, but he's a diamond in the rough and teams are talking themselves into him higher and higher. And that ended up being borne out on draft night. So there definitely are guys who help themselves and hurt themselves in this final month. It's just probably not as many as you're led to believe by, mock drafts and whatnot. But he is an example of, you heard a ton of smoke about him in the final few weeks or so.
All right, Bree, should we sneak in one more? Get one more in there? Let's fit one more in there. Question, Booby_Styles. Booby, mailbag question. What NBA players or former players should actually have a podcast? I think it's the late Bill Russell, and that's it.
Well, Jeff Teague, pretty clearly.
Yeah, he's
nobody deserves to have a podcast more than that group. Those guys are insanely funny.
Yes,
including Jeff Teague.
Yes, he is.
There was a Behan.
I saw that
thread.
Yeah, he's on a legendary podcast
just all
run.
The quote tweets of the clips of him talking about. I got to tell you, I don't remember her name. The woman that Zion is associated with. There was a clip of them talking about her and Zion that we can't repeat any of the conversation on the show.
Fantastic.
But I almost fell out of my seat laughing at that. So Jeff Teague, number one with a bullet, because that dude is an unbelievable storyteller.
Yeah.
Who else, though?
I do want to give out a shout out to Hedva, because I think what she brought up in Discord is a chat service that some of our subscribers use. Yeah.
Oh, you have to be a diehard member.
But she brought up Kareem, and I think that would be great. Like Kareem talking about the world, I think would just be a tremendous podcast. And you throw in a little basketball talk as well. But I want to give a shout out to Hedva because I think that's 100%.
Who else is in the Jeff Teague mold is kind of what the answer would be for me. Like a guy who was a good player.
All-star.
Not like the hot top of the league, but good enough to have, some level of cachet, but also was a personality.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who that is. Actually, who we covered? It's certainly not as good as Teague. D-House, I would listen to on a podcast. That dude had no shortage of things to say.
I was actually thinking Evan Turner a little bit because he is low-key funny.
He is good.
But he's also a little bit, like he feels like he's a little bit bitter at times. I don't know if that would come across well on a podcast, but
Turner he have one with Iguodala?
He did one for a while.
I don't know if they still do
I don't know if they still do
but he
it.
was good.
I do agree. Like, there's probably too many right now. Just too many podcasts.
I'm not going to say there's too many podcasts because I have a level of self-awareness on this show.
I'm including us in that group.
I thought you meant athletes.
No, there are not too many athletes.
Athlete podcast.
I thought JJ was great when he did it, though. He was really good at just actually like explaining what was going on. It's a balance because you want them to be able to relay their experiences and the lifestyle and all of that, while also then being able to explain the game. And JJ certainly did the second, which is why he's a head coach now. But I thought his podcast was great.
All right, let's go to our super chats that we have here. Good question, though. Brian Pumper saying,
here we go.
If it ain't Ace
propaganda segment.
Then it's a waste. 100% going to be a spectacle when Ace is a Sixer for life.
I appreciate you clarifying that, Brian. I had forgotten what your opinion was.
All right, Riaz.
I'm only going to say,
thank you for
pay attention to what people are starting to say about their boards and their mocks and where Ace Bailey is
keep watching those pros talk glowingly about Ace Bailey and how much they love him. Keep watching it, Pump. That's what you focus on.
I will say everyone's favorite thing this time of year is just appealing to authority. Nobody can just have a take because it's their take. It's, oh, did you see what this guy said about this player?
Because of, all of those superstars who then went on and became great NBA general managers. Happens all the time.
Listen, I'm not taking shots at anybody. I'm just saying it's okay to just believe something because you believe it. You don't have to tell me, hey, so-and-so said this.
Did you see what DeMarcus Cousins says?
What do you think of Ace Bailey? What do you think of VJ Edgecombe? I don't care what public draft mock guy said, and I don't care what NBA player said, right? Like, if nobody's opinion on 18 and 19-year-old kids sways me all that much.
Well,
right?
We clearly likes Ace.
We all have our takes.
Clearly likes Ace. Thank
We
you for the
know
super
that,
chat.
for sure.
Riaz, if we re-sign Grimes, is there a possibility we could use him in a sign and trade if we drafted someone like Edgecombe, or is that unlikely?
It's not impossible.
No.
It would require somebody to really want Quentin and somebody who couldn't really offer him the contract that he was going to get. So, it's so many weird cap shenanigans nowadays that come with it. Maybe they don't want to use their non-taxpayer mid-level, but then they also probably don't want to acquire him in a sign and trade because that hard caps you as well. I do think, and there have been some sign and trades recently, so it's not impossible, but I do think there is some more considerations with that now. It's possible. It's certainly possible. I think probably more likely is they re-sign Quentin, and then if in 6 months
There's a log
VJ and VJ is just like not demanding like literally going to Nick Nurse and demanding, but his play is requiring more time given to him. Then they just wait until that January 15th deadline and move him then.
I'm not concerned about having too many good guards.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about having too many guards who can't play, right? So what could they gain from a sign and trade that would be better than having a 24-year-old 6'5", 6'6" guard who can play on and off ball?
Yeah.
Right. Like, not a lot of options you could throw at me from the teams that would actually be interested in him that I'd be like, yep, sign on the dotted line today. I think you sign him as long as it's not crazy money. You draft who you think is the best player, and you ride off into the sunset together.
All right.
Pretty easy for me.
Appreciate the super chats from Riaz and Brian Pumper. We thank you as always. Just a final one before we get to our roll call.
Yeah, man, we might not go overtime for the first time in like a month and a half.
I was just giving you time to talk about Tobias Harris trolling Paul George.
I'm just kidding.
That's all. Paul George, Tobias Harris.
Yeah, I don't
both sitting on their couch. So exactly. Listen, man, if your victory is that you were not part of the Sixers disaster season and you lost in the first round, I don't know, man.
Hey,
I'm happy. Look, Tobias is a good guy. I'm not gonna sit here and just.
No, and I understand why he would feel a certain way about the way he was treated. Like, it's not his fault that he was offered that contract, but a little bit of self-awareness, buddy. Like, you were one of the bigger, like, in terms of contract disappointments in a while. Your lack of productivity as a third option and your lack of growth in your game since getting here, a big reason why the team didn't advance to where they wanted to go. Like, if you would have been better in the second round, or maybe, I don't know, score a point in your final game as a Sixer, maybe history is a little bit different. Crowing that the other team went 4 of 27 to close out the year when they sat all of their good players, I don't know.
I'd be a little more sympathetic to his argument if he hadn't made like $200 million over 5 years under the expectation that he was going to be a member of the core, right?
Yeah.
It's a little easier to run that argument when it's a $5 to $10 million role player who is not succeeding because of the stars, right? You're supposed to be a star.
Right. He was a role player paid as a star, dragging down your finances during the core of Embiid's prime. Like, a little.
Also, I don't really want to hear from Paul George either. Like, that's my thing, right? You just had a horrible season. I don't need you taking shots at Tobias or using Tobias as you. Why don't you just play better? How about that?
It is a good picture. I appreciate. Like, if you're gonna troll, I like the picture, but
whatever. I'm not happy with Tobias or Paul George right now.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
It's overtime for roll call. PHLY.com. Head on over there to finish off the show for the PHLY Sixers show, the podcast, right here at allphlY.com. Thanks, everybody on the television side. It is time for the world famous roll call.
Never get out of here without overtime, man. It'll never happen again. Devon tried.
I tried.
He tried.
I tried.
Oh, is that a last minute super chat from B Pump, who said, fellas, we are allowed to play wings. Kyle endorses Nick Nurse's terrorist 4-guard lineup. No, I do not.
Which is
that
funny,
literally is the antithesis of my brand.
Also, the antithesis of Nick Nurse's brand. Do you not remember Toronto?
You know
They
what
were
I
all
want?
big
Good
forwards.
players.
Yes.
That's who I want. I want players who are good, who can make good decisions and make shots and dribble.
Good players.
Hard to get those, but that's what I want.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll worry about the rest as it happens.
Yes.
So B Pump, thank you for yet another
Donation.
super chat about wings, not drumsticks. Thank you to Riaz for his super chat. Thank you to everybody else who was here today hanging out. Igavini, Hedfa, Jess with looks like a new avatar. Jess, is that a new picture that you're? Look at that. Mom's grandchildren. What up to mom? What's up to my girl Winona, Mary Overfield, Jesse Bond, Duck Holiday, who I think is another one of the pro acers.
Yeah. What up, Duck?
Of course, Devon's gotta underline that pro ace. Well, listen, we're gonna have plenty more ace conversations, guys. Still have a month to go.
You're not kidding.
Shout out to Valos, to SB Cole,
Hey, Val.
to Kyle Wright, to Lee Nguyen, to Darkness.
Turn the lights down.
Marcus Blackstock,
What up,
Greeny
Mark?
Green, INS, Calvin.
What up, Cal?
Calvin got a job. I'm proud of Calvin.
What up, Cal?
I not referring to this Calvin.
No.
I know Devon got the rest.
Yes. Yes.
I won't repeat the rest of that for obvious reasons. Sean Sharp, Paul, just Paul.
What up, Paul George?
I sure hope not. We've said a lot of mean
Well,
things.
at least he's watching.
Better call B-Ball Paul. Still love that name.
Yes.
Keith B,
What up, Keith?
hanging out with us. Who else we got in here today?
Good R&B music from Keith B.
Wow, Keith Sweat. Elaine Bruno.
Keith Washington.
Who else is in here? You better love somebody.
Love somebody. Love somebody.
All right. Ja.
Ja, ja, ja.
Who says every team would have picked Ace at third. My friend, I know that's not true.
We got a month to go, man.
I can tell you right now, I know that's not true. But I appreciate your support. of
Philly
Ace.
Sheriff, we see you.
Philly Sheriff, indeed.
A late edition. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, everybody who was here today. I love
Jumping
you
in
all,
the
no
show.
matter who your favorite prospect is, and no matter how much you yell at Derek and I for takes that we don't share. I get blamed for Derek's opinions, and he gets blamed for mine. Devon, the Switzerland in the middle, just gets to sit and bask in the glow of being slightly pro-ace. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Hit the thumbs up button to help us out in the algorithm, but also to say thank you to super producer Bree holding it down as always. We'll see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. I can't even say Monday through Friday this week. It's Tuesday through Friday.
3 p.m. though.
What a world, but 3 p.m. every weekday. Good to see you guys as always. Take care.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.